Taliban takeover of Afghanistan has serious ramifications for South Asia. But few countries in the region have as much at stake in Afghanistan's future as India. In this light, the interview planned for today is in context of the return of Taliban and emerging security metrics for India in context of Pakistan. To speak more on the issue, we have with us Vaishali Basu Sharma.
Vaishali Basu is a researcher on strategic and she has worked as a consultant with the National Security Council Secretariat for nearly a decade. Vaishali is now associated with Policy Perspectives Foundation. Thanks for joining us, Vaishali.
Thank you for having me.
So, the brief background for the interview is India and Pakistan have long supported opposing sides in Afghanistan. The Taliban's swift takeover has brought to power an Afghan government more closely aligned with Pakistan, stirring security concerns in neighboring India and potentially raising tensions between the two nuclear neighbors. Officials in India who supported the US backed government in Kabul have warned in recent days that the Taliban's return could again make the country a haven for terrorists. The Taliban has said they would no longer allow Afghanistan to be used against other countries, but Indian officials are skeptical. So, Vaishali, in this light, that there are concerns in Indian security policy and foreign policy establishments with the takeover of Afghanistan by Taliban, why does New Delhi feels it has lost influence in Afghanistan? Please elaborate the reasons for these concerns with respect to the interlinkages between Pakistani state and Taliban.
To get a proper perspective on this question, you may have to go back to an event that took place over two decades back, which is the hijack of Indian Airlines flight 814, when five terrorists hijacked the plane and took it to the Taliban heartland in Kandahar. There, at that time, the Taliban was at the helm of the government in Afghanistan, and they offered complete support to the terrorists who had force landed the Indian Airlines aircraft in Kandahar. The terrorist demand was that Mushtaq Ahmad Zargar, Omar Saeed Sheikh, and Masoor Azad be freed by the Indian government. Since August 15, you have the Taliban once again back as the ruling at the helm of affairs in Afghanistan. And frankly, things have not really changed in these 2 decades. The Taliban may look like an entity. I mean, there is a narrative that is doing the rounds that this Taliban, which has returned after 2 decades, is a more reasonable entity and is likely to be more inclusive, but that is not a fact. It is the same Taliban that was fighting the American and the NATO forces. It is the same Taliban that was in exile in Pakistan. It is the same commanders that for years protected by their linkages in the Pakistani establishment and have linkages with Al Qaeda militant leaders. So, my own sense is that India has to look at it from that perspective, that the leaders have been the same, the commanders are the same, and this is the same group of people that have been propped up by the Pak intelligence. To understand, you just have to examine the profiles of the so-called ministers of the Taliban government. They have announced their government on Tuesday, and if you take a look at their supreme leader, they have announced Maulvi Hebatullah Akhundzada as the supreme leader. He was the head of the Sharia courts in the 1990s in the earlier Taliban government. And since 2017, he was religious leader of the Taliban. So even some of the other characters like Mullah Hassan Akhundzada, he was a close aide of Mullah Omar. And he was the governor of Kandahar in the 90s. He's on the UN blacklist. Then you have Abdul Ghani Baradar. He has been announced as the deputy leader of the Taliban's new government. And he was Mullah Omar's operational commander back in the earlier Taliban regime. Although despite the fact that represents a more moderate faction, it is unlikely that this moderate faction will likely to succeed because the interior minister is Sirajuddin Haqqani of the Haqqani network, the leader of the Haqqani network. And he is a favorite of the Pakistani intelligence agencies. The Haqqani network, they control very large swaths of southeastern Afghanistan, and they host most of the military training camps in that area. They also host foreign fighters, and his father, Jalaluddin Haqqani, was Minister of Tribal Affairs in the earlier Taliban regime, which was there from in the mid 90s. There is a still continuity is there to say that this return of the Taliban, they are different and things may be different, or India can engage is not so easy. There is a clear continuity, and although there is wishful thinking that they are a reasonable entity, that is not the case. Ground reports have also confirmed that what they have been showcasing as part of a very clever public relations program, like they have been showcasing that they will allow women to go to colleges or schools, and they will allow women to come back to work. We have incidents of for example, in the well-known incident of the Azizi Bank, where women workers were beaten up and sent back home, and other incidents also of Taliban undertaking house-to-house searches of Afghan nationals who were working with the government or who were working with the security forces. So there is a clear continuity as far as ruthlessness goes, as far as violent behavior goes, but it is actually a sharper Taliban in terms that they know how to manage media relations. They know the mistakes that they had made in the past. Even in terms of tactics, like in the northern areas, they have been very swift to subdue the Panjshiri resistance. So the very fact that today in the social media there is a video that is doing the rounds where in Panjshir they sabotage the grave of Ahmad Shah Massoud after suppressing the Panjshir resistance fighters. When they were celebrating that suppression, that is a clear indication that really things have not changed. You have the same group of intolerant people that were there previously. So just in a maybe a slightly different package, it's the same ruthlessness that you can see.
So Vaishali, if you could go a little back in history and tell us about Pakistan's historic linkages with Taliban and how they have molded it in the current times to gain a strategic depth.
Pakistan's linkages with Afghanistan have been very long. They have always sought strategic depth in Afghanistan. If you go back a little further, in the years after the Soviet withdrawal in 1989, after years and years of struggle in the mountains, the Mujahideen took power in Afghanistan. And there were groups of Mujahideen fighters, and these groups began to seize land, businesses. They started to acquire, occupy roads and put up arbitrary checkpoints. So basically, you had a situation in Afghanistan where there were many mini fiefdoms, literally, of Mujahideen militia that were occupying. So there was basically a sense of complete lawlessness. It is at this time that you have the emergence of Mullah Omar, and his group was propped up by some of the most powerful Mujahideen commanders. They decided to organize a force to subdue the petty criminal militia elements that were sweeping into the southern Afghanistan region. Mullah Omar was one candidate who emerged as one of the best Mujahideen fighters and also extremely religious. Mullah Omar and his Taliban movement, that is how it began. He called a meeting of about 50 senior Mujahideen commanders in Sangesar, where they took an oath of allegiance to fight the corruption and criminality that was that these Mujahideen militia commanders had, sort of spread all through. And this group then came to be known as, this group which had pledged allegiance to Mullah Omar, came to be known as the Taliban, which literally means seekers of knowledge. Pakistan which was watching these developments in Afghanistan closely, was very swift to co-opt this movement, the Taliban movement, because it emerged as the most powerful among Mujahideen movements. Pakistan's security apparatus adopted this, and the Mujahideen cause became a very dear cause for the Pak security establishment. And this is where, this is the historical linkages that you were, this thing. And since then, for decades, Pakistan has used proxy forces. It has used Mujahideen, Taliban, and Kashmiri militants in India to propagate its influence beyond its borders. Pakistanis have wanted Afghanistan firmly in their own camp to provide strategic depth. So as far as Pakistan's continuing this thing is concerned, that has never stopped. And even now, you will find that Pakistan will encourage the Taliban. You will find that it will encourage a sort of waywardness for the Taliban government.
Yeah,
It
so
will
yeah,
deliberately
in context of this, so yeah, as you have already laid focus on the role of Pakistan in the government formation of Kabul. So yeah, so exactly what you were talking about now. So do you think has the Taliban developed any semblance of foreign policy autonomous of Pakistan, and can the New Delhi pursue a dehyphenated Taliban Pakistan policy? What is your opinion on that?
See, you will find that Pakistan will deliberately try to keep the Taliban cut off from the wider world in order to control them. As far as Taliban is concerned, they don't have any conception of state formation. They have a under-theorized or underdeveloped concept of state beyond vague references to Sharia law and state independent of foreign occupation, which is their main concern, that Afghanistan be free of Western forces. The Taliban's own vision of the shape of the state is absolutely ambiguous. It is only that they believe that there should be a Sharia state and that foreign forces should not be that. Beyond that, how the state will function, it's completely right now they have formed a government, but it is a government literally of militant elements. If you see, if we earlier, like we earlier discussed, the kind of characters that they have on their ministries, Pakistan will ensure that this kind of wayward behavior continues. It will keep them cut off again, as like I said, from the wider world in order to control them. Another instance, like I'll try to this thing is, again from history. We will go back, 10 years back. This Pakistani determination to control the Taliban was exposed as when back in 2009 and 10, US and Afghan governments were making efforts to reach out the Taliban. And Pakistan detained several dozen Taliban members that the Karzai government then was trying to talk to. For instance, even Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar, who is considered a more moderate element within the Taliban sort of government. Pakistan has always distrusted him, and because of his extensive contacts with the international aid agencies and Afghan government officials, Pakistan coordinated Baradar's detention to prevent his involvement in the peace negotiations. So Pakistan has been pulling the strings of the Taliban and has been involved in promoting, sort of this wayward behavior, like I earlier said.
So, in the current context, what are the critical security concerns for India linking Pakistan to Afghanistan?
For now, the kind of behavior that has, everybody is watching out what, what sort of behavior that the Taliban is, displaying. And there is no dearth of reports which clearly show that the Taliban has been conducting, for instance, searches for Afghans who were working for the NDS, which is the Afghan intelligence agency, former Afghan intelligence agency, journalists who have been beaten, who have been tortured, soldiers en masse have crossed into Central Asia, Tajikistan. There were reports of this. The fate of the Afghan soldiers, there was a fairly large Afghan army, about 3 lakh people, soldiers. That remains unknown, how these soldiers will be accommodated. As before, prior to the fall of Kabul, as the Taliban was, they were taking provincial capitals, as they were advancing They completely disregarded the security situation, as in like they were attacking innocent Afghanis, and they were carrying out butchering of Afghan soldiers in the places and provincial capitals that they captured. This is an entity that has no tolerance for any opposition. It has made no effort to accommodate members of even Afghan political faction, or even approach the civil society in Afghanistan. At this juncture, for India to approach the Taliban, it is a difficult task. I mean, who do you talk to in the Taliban? What reasonable elements are there? There are some moderate elements, like I earlier mentioned. There is likelihood that Ghani Abdul Mullah Ghani Baradar is a more moderate element, but how far they can prevail over the likes of Sirajuddin Haqqani is difficult to say. After the closure of India's consulates in Kandahar and Herat, there were reports that the Taliban, they broke the locks, they forced entered into the consulates, they compound, they searched the cupboards for papers, they took away our consulate parked vehicles. So how can you place any trust on a movement which is very criminal inclined? Just even if you read the accounts of the evacuees who have come to India, who have been rescued from Afghanistan, they are frightening. Actually, there is literally an atmosphere of fear in Afghanistan. At this juncture, to even imagine that any sort of engagement is possible is difficult. As far as India's wider security concerns, militant Islam is the biggest concern for India. This is a juggernaut that cannot be just turned off or turned away from. There are reports that there has been a surge of foreign militants, about 40 to 50 in northern Kashmir already. So there are fears that a new wave of violence likely to hit J&K. Radical Kashmiri youth will certainly feel a pull and a boost in morale after the especially after there has been disaffection among sections of the youth in J&K that has increased since the abrogation of Article 370, and we have to be really watch out that that disaffected youth does not feel that pull from the return of the Taliban, that morale boost. More than engaging with Taliban, I personally feel that government of India should really try to engage with the political entities in J&K, so that it is the most important aspect possibly for the as far as rise of militancy is concerned. I mean, there is jubilation within LET, JEM, and their handlers in Rawalpindi since the return of Taliban. These elements will certainly try to penetrate the security gaps in Kashmir and stealthily enhance sleeper cells with adequate motivation and finances and firepower. Their effort will be to exploit the strong undercurrent of resentment following the abrogation of Article 370. At the present juncture, it will be prudent for the government to engage in a proactive political process and provide a healing touch to the sentiments of the Kashmiris, because that is where your largest security concern will arise from. If a Kashmiri youth feel a pull towards militancy again with the return of the Taliban. As far as political outreach is concerned, the PM's meeting with the political leaders from J&K in June was an important step. Another follow-up meeting of the same kind will send a very positive signal about the sincerity of the central government towards the people of J&K.
Thanks, Vaishali. Thanks for sharing your expert opinion with us on such an important issue, and
Thank you for having me.
Great to have you here.
It was nice talking to you, Kavita.